Hello, boys and girls. Come one, come all to the North Pole of football because if the Raiders play, it's 32 below and everything stinks. How are you guys? I'm doing great. I'm a little sick, and the Raiders, who, if you couldn't tell, is the team that I root for, were once 2-2, are now 2-11. And yet here we are talking about them because I still love this team, even though they consistently break my spirits during the holiday season, and because you guys deserve to have these games broken down, whether it's a thriller on Black Friday versus the Kansas City Chiefs, who win another game in, we'll call it spectacular fashion, or whether it's a game in which Aidan O'Connell presumably breaks his leg or tears his ACL, but then it turns out it's only a bone bruise. Say that 5 times fast. And now he could play Monday night, but he probably won't. It's going to be Desmond Ritter. This is a nightmare. This is a season from HE double hockey sticks, okay? And we're going to talk about it all. If you're watching me on Bleach Report, thank you so much. Get those comments in. We're going to be reading them in the chat. If you're watching me after the fact on YouTube, I do have a YouTube channel, ALLaBorde Raiders. It is written right here. You can go to that after the fact. Make sure we're commenting where we're watching this from. Is anybody watching from the North Pole? Let me know. How's Santa feeling? The big day's coming up in a little bit. But let's not talk about Santa right now. Let's talk about something that's sad. The Raiders season so far. Bad, really bad, not good. And if we bring up the box score, usually I have the same thing. It is sick. We have to do this every week, but it's okay because the season is mercifully, slowly crawling to an end. 4 games left. Let's just stay the course. Hang in there. Ain't no cannon. That's funny. Usually, I come on here and I say, yet another game where the Raiders outplay their opponent and lose the turnover battle and lose the game. Because that's, it got clipped out last week by whoever clips these things out. The main reason why we lose the game is a turnover battle. Well, guess what? We won the turnover battle this week. Can you believe that? And it didn't matter. Of course it doesn't matter. So let's get into the box score here. The lovely box score for this 28-13 snooze fest of a football game. Now, obviously, Aidan O'Connell gets hurt in this game. So the numbers are a little bit skewed because Desmond Ritter comes in, and we know what Desmond Ritter is at this point. I mean, we also know what Aidan O'Connell is at this point. If you look at the stats, we got worked in every facet of the game. We were outgained by them. Yards per play, we were destroyed. Rushing yards was not very good. They got more first downs. They were, around this. No, they were slightly better on third down. We were 3 for 3 on fourth down, which is hilarious. We're not great on fourth down this year, and we're not great in the turnover battle. And still, even doing well in those aspects of this game, we lose. We had the ball more, and we committed less penalties. But at the end of the day, what is the culprit of this team never even coming close to winning? They cannot score any points. So let's talk about the Aidan O'Connell of it all. He did not start out great. I wouldn't say that the first quarter necessarily was his fault initially, but then he started getting the rhythm. And I'm like, okay, Aidan. And then it's 14-10, and the defense is balling out. And I'm saying in my Discord, ALLaBorde Raiders Discord if you want to join it, this is why Antonio Pierce is going to get another job. Or he's going to keep this job. Because this team is playing hard, and we're in every game. And this is 10 a.m. body clock against the presumed winner of the NFC South, if I had to put any money on it. And then Aidan scrambles, and he gets a first down. I believe it's the first scramble of his career. And he comes up really hobbling. It was a tough hit. He fell to the ground, but he gets back up. Now, he looks like he hurt something. And look, I'm not a doctor. I'm not speculating on this isn't tinfoil hat. This isn't Santa Claus hat theory here. But then on the play where he gets the bone bruise, which is, he had an air cast on, but it's a bone bruise. Okay, whatever. It was definitely a late hit. And Gene Steratore, shout out to the no card incident, comes on and says, I don't know how that wasn't a foul. I know how it wasn't a foul. We'll move on from that. He comes on and says it's a late hit. But on that hit, Aidan didn't get hit that hard. So my theory is that he got hurt on the scramble. He badly bruised himself on the scramble, and then a quarter later when he got hit, that was it. He was done. He needed the air cast. Now, why am I saying that? Because in between those two chunks was the worst football he's ever played. He looked like Gardner Minshew times 10. The two passes he threw that were interceptions were some of the worst interceptions I had ever seen. Now, either he was really hurt, didn't want to take sacks, and just started chucking the ball, and he didn't want to get hit, or he was just terrible. Either way, that's on Aidan O'Connell. If you just stink, then you stink. Whatever, you stink. Who else are we going to play? Desmond Ridder, I guess. But Aidan, if you are hurt, I understand you just came back from injury and you want to give it the best you got. But if you are hurt and it's significantly hindering your ability to play the quarterback position, you got to take yourself out. You have to. So that was irresponsible if he was hurt, and I do think that's what happened. Those interceptions, I'd never seen him make plays like that. It was Gardner Minshew level bad. Now, maybe he was just pressing, but there was no reason to press in that situation. We were in those games. We were in the game. I do think there was an injury that had something to do with it, but even if that is the case, it's still on him. He's got to take himself out of the game. If that's not an injury, if he's just bad, which he probably is at this point, then he's bad, then whatever. But as we take a look at the stats here, and obviously there's not much to hang our Santa hats on. And we'll get into talking about drafting for a quarterback and Antonio Pierce, because as much as I am told by Bleacher Report to recap this game, and I will do that to the best of my ability, it's becoming increasingly harder for 30 minutes say they're bad. However, we can talk about the future and what it means, looking at stuff that happened in this game right now affecting what's going to happen in the future. Aidan O'Connell, Desmond Ridder together, not a great quarterback if you can imagine that. Michael Mayer, it was nice to see him have a very good game. Jacoby Myers, a steady Eddie. Michael Mayer was spamming the triangle button the whole game. He was just jumping over people for no apparent reason. I think he's trying to show, like, hey, I could do stuff too. All right, Big Mike, do your thing. We believe in you. The one bright spot of this whole game, other than the defense, which really played their tail off, I've been very critical of Patrick Graham schematically, but effort-wise and coaching-wise, he's really good, and I see the Drew Aller comment. We'll get to the future of the quarterback position with all these championship games that happened last week or a couple of days ago in a second. Let me take a drink of water because I am a little under the weather. Sincere McCormick is going to be my first poll. Okay? We're going to send the poll out. Let's talk about Sincere McCormick. Because as of right now, he's shown a little something. And I don't want to be a negative Nancy. I don't want to be a Scrooge. I don't want to be Ron Howard's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. But if you remember this time last year, when we were trying to scratch and claw our way into the playoffs, I know it feels like a lifetime ago that we were close to making the playoffs. There was a running back who came out of nowhere when Josh Jacobs was hurt to play his tail off, and that was Zamir White. And he was going off against the Chiefs, and he was leading the league in yards per carry, per attempt. And it was like Zamir McCormick. Zamir White, he's RB1, right? And he was training in the offseason, and he has that infamous, someone's got to do it, it's going to be me, right? My only pushback on the Sincere McCormick of it all is that we just did this with Zamir White. And we saw so far this season how that's looked when we just give this running back who is playing above his potential the reins. Now, do I think Sincere McCormick is better than Zamir White? Yes, I do. Because I think Zamir White, a little Darren McFadden in terms of I just like run up the middle. If the hole's there, I'm gone. If it's not there, I'm tackled. Sincere McCormick, great impression, thank you. Sincere McCormick has some wiggle to him, has some vision. It looks a little Jacobs. And I'm not saying Jacobs because of the number, but he can go, over here, and then, over here, hit the gap, right? Now, there's no film on him, so teams don't know how to play him. I'm just saying, if I had to vote in this poll right here, to me, it's too early to tell. I am not going to get tricked into handing the RB1 spot to Sincere McCormick because he had a few good games in the end of the season where the games don't really matter. Because we did that last year when the games did matter and Zamir White was amazing. And now Zamir White stinks and we don't have a good running back on the roster, right? So as I'm reading the comments here, why wasn't Sincere playing early in the year? I mean, it's because of how good Zamir White was last year, right? I think that's right. Too many great RBs coming out of the draft. He'll compete for the job, though. I don't disagree with that. Tom and AP need another year for draft class and free agency. Okay, we'll talk about that. Now, look, you've got some running backs that are going to come out in free agency, assuming like Najee Harris doesn't get franchise tagged. The Steelers don't typically hang on to running backs long, right? Le'Veon Bell, they got out of there. James Conner, they got out of there. So we'll see what happens with Najee Harris. I don't hate somebody like that coming to the Raiders. And there are a lot of running backs coming out this year. I was listening to a podcast a couple of days ago from a guy who has insider sources that are scouts of NFL teams that are buddies of him. And he said he wouldn't be shocked if 8 running backs go within the top 100 picks. And I would bet top dollar, which is not a lot for me, that we will be one of those teams taking one of those 8 running backs within the first 3 rounds, right? So as much as I do think Sincere McCormick looks better even than Zamir White did last year, we got to pump the brakes just a little bit, and I think it's too early to tell. And I think, the parity in this poll shows that we are a little hesitant to give him the job because we just kind of gave the job to Zamir White. Obviously, we're not doing it. We're the fans. It's up to Telesco and AP to evaluate all this stuff, and that goes to the AP of it all. Is AP the right guy? I don't know, but let's read a little bit here. AP said he doesn't give up on rookies, but Dylan Robley has 3 snaps on the season. No comment on that. Sincere can split the backfield with the day 2 pick. There's no opportunity for us to draft a clear-cut RB1. Well, you say there's no opportunity for us to draft a clear-cut RB1, which brings me to the quarterback position, the draft, right? Because the Jacksonville Jaguars, in one of the worst football games you'll ever see, with Mac Jones, one of the worst quarterbacks in the National Football League. No shade to McCormick. It just is what it is. If I was in the league, I would be the worst quarterback in the league. Okay? Please don't come at me, McCormick. I apologize. Win a football game, which springboards us to the number 1 overall pick. Now, I just assumed, I made my videos yesterday, I just assumed that Aidan O'Connell would be out for the year. They weren't going to go to Carter Bradley. They were going to go Desmond Ridder, which means we would steamroll to the number 1 overall pick. Again, no shade to Desmond Ridder. It just is what it is. If Aidan comes back, maybe he could win a game or 2. I don't know. Clearly, we need a whole new quarterback room. Even if Aidan were to play well, and he did for the Chiefs against the Chiefs, and he did a little in this game, and then the wheels fell off. Terrible. Injury or not, garbage. Aidan can't be the backup because he continually gets hurt. So we need to go sign a veteran. Maybe that's a Sam Darnold. Maybe that's a good question for another time. Star Wars: The Force Awakens. I am not 100% convinced that we should just rip Shedeur Sanders with the first pick in the draft. Now, I'm not saying to take Genty with this first pick, but there's an opportunity to be had here to recreate a little bit of the 2014 draft class that the Raiders had. Because if you remember, the Raiders in that season either traded for or I believe just signed in free agency Matt Schaub, Pro Bowl quarterback. He was going to be the guy, the bridge to whoever they drafted. And with the first pick that they had in 2014, they drafted who? Not a quarterback. They drafted Khalil Mack. And then in the second round, they took Derek Carr. And then in the third round, they took Gabe Jackson. What if Tom Telesco, who's a very good GM in terms of the NFL draft, decides best player available in round 1, maybe that is to them, that is Shedeur. Best player available in round 1, quarterback in round 2. Because you saw in these championship games, Dylan Gabriel, Drew Aller, we see what Jalen Miller can do. Some of these guys are going to fall because of the Cam Ward hype and the Shedeur Sanders name and the ability too. Shedeur Sanders is a good player. But I pose this question to you, my watchers of the Bleacher Report live stream, and comment below if you're watching after the fact on YouTube. Which draft scenario do you prefer December 9th, 2024? And I want you to think about what's best for this football team. And I want you to think about this. I'm not suggesting we draft Dylan Gabriel. I'm just saying there are guys out there that we don't know yet that are going to be great players. Like a Dak Prescott, who was a 4th-round pick. They drafted him to sit under Tony Romo, and he was just too good. And Tony Romo broke his back. Now he's telling us what the play is going to be in the broadcast booth every other game. Which scenario do you prefer? Because of these two right now, whether it's draft Travis Hunter in the 1st round, or maybe it's Genti if we don't have the first pick, and then go Aller or Milroe, or insert whatever quarterback you want there in a second, or maybe let's trade back up into the first to get one of these guys. Or it's Shedeur Sanders, and then whichever skill player it is in the 2nd round. We got to talk about this. We have to talk about this. And I need you guys to throw it in the comments, okay? Because right now, and look, it might be that I'm just afraid that the last time we took a quarterback number 1 overall who was the number 2, it was Jamarcus Russell, and that was in 2008, and it was the biggest bust in NFL history, or one of. And I'm not saying that Shedeur Sanders is that. I think Shedeur Sanders is clearly a higher character guy than Jamarcus Russell. He has a higher floor than Jamarcus Russell. We took Jamarcus Russell thinking he could be the next John Elway, which is what Mel Kiper said out loud. Nobody thinks that Shedeur Sanders is the next Josh Allen. He has a high floor, but so did Mac Jones. And that's not a knock on Shedeur Sanders, but Mac Jones made the playoffs his rookie year, and then he never got any better. So we might have some immediate success with Shedeur, with your Brock Bowers, with your Jacoby Myers, with whoever we draft in the 2nd round, skill-wise, with T. Higgins maybe in free agency in the offseason. But what if instead of the Shedeur Sanders of it all, you draft who John Gruden has alluded to on his new Barstool show now, Travis Hunter, who could be the next Charles Woodson. That's what John Gruden was saying, potentially. So now you've got Travis Hunter on your team, and Brock Bowers, and Max Crosby. And you've got JPJ at center, and Glaze, and you got Spillane, and you got these blue chippers, right? Nate Hobbs and Ja'Cory Bennett's finally coming into his own. And you draft Aller. I'm going to go Aller right now because I think he showed a lot in that Big Ten championship game, and I'm also a little biased because I went to Penn State. I met him a couple times. He's a sweetheart of a kid. He's a leader. He's improved so much from year 1 to year 2. And that throw he made on 4th down where he was getting grabbed, that was literally Josh Allen against the Rams. And he has some throws where you're like, holy hell. And then he has some throws where you're like, holy hell, yikes. I get it. But I'm not saying Drew Aller should start day 1. What if you go out and you sign a Sam Darnold for 2 years, and now Drew Aller is your Jordan Love? So you've got Sam Darnold throwing to Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers and whoever you sign in the offseason to T. Higgins. And you have him handing off to Sincere McCormick or Najee Harris. And Aller learns under a Sam Darnold who have very similar playing styles. And now you have potentially the next Charles Woodson and Travis Hunter to shore up the back end of your defense with Max Crosby. And Wilkins is back. And Arden Key, excuse me. I don't know where my brain just went. Malcolm Kuntz is back. I know Shedeur Sanders is the popular pick. And if they do that, I'm all in because I believe Tom Telesco is going to make the right move. But the Tom Telesco of it all makes me think he's not just going to take Shedeur Sanders because that's what the noise is telling him to do. I do think if Michael Penix fell to us, Michael Penix would be the starting quarterback for the Raiders right now. That is not what happened. It is what it is. So he went, I'm taking Brock Bowers. And I do believe we need to seriously consider not taking Shedeur Sanders because you're again passing up on an almost guaranteed generational player. And I think you could have a lot of success with Drew Aller learning under a Sam Darnold, or if Stafford becomes available in a trade situation and you don't have to give up your first. I don't know. What are we saying in the comments? Darnold is only good because of the system and he throws to Justin Jefferson. I don't disagree with that. I would say that he'd be now throwing to Brock Bowers, and we'll see what the system is for us next year. Just because that's true doesn't mean that he can't also have that same success in a different system with the Raiders. And I would say to you, I don't know if he's a system quarterback. I think he's just not a good quarterback for the Jets because the Jets are a nightmare. Similarly to us. Similarly for us. Let's see. I think getting rid of Max would be a huge mistake, even being a drafting these markers. So yeah, I wouldn't get rid of Max. It's rare that you find a player that's willing to sit through so much turmoil and rebuilding and losing. That's that good. So I think you want to grab a hold of him and hold on to him for as long as you can, to be completely honest with you. But I understand talking to all the scenarios. Okay. Aller has the tools, but he's Josh Allen light, no doubt about it. And look, Josh Allen coming out, he wasn't the first quarterback or the second quarterback taken in that draft. What did he go? Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, and then Josh Allen? Or was Rosen right before him or right after him, and then Lamar was all the way at the end? I think, no question, people will now say Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are the two best quarterbacks to come out of that class. So you just never know with these guys. I'm telling you. That's why I think it's a real possibility that the second option of drafting, or the first option in this poll, drafting Travis Hunter and then going quarterback in the second round or late first, could be the move. I just want to keep all our options open, because what if we just reached for a quarterback in last year's draft and never got Brock Bowers, and then that quarterback stunk? I'm not trying to downplay the hype I would have for Shedeur Sanders. I would be 100% bought in and ready to rip. I just think we need to have a conversation about it. Travis Hunter and Brock Bowers would be crazy with Max and Wilkins. I mean, it's just hard to pass up. It's just hard to pass up. We got to talk about it. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about here before we close up shop here. We've been talking a lot about the past, 2014, a lot about the present, Aidan O'Connell, leg cast for a bone bruise somehow. Let's talk a little bit about the future using evidence from the present. Head coaching is, I would say, the most important aspect of any team. Look at the Los Angeles Chargers. They went from Brandon Staley, who, no doubt about it, one of the worst coaches we've ever seen, to Jim Harbaugh, no doubt about it, one of the best coaches we've ever seen. I don't care what anybody says about Jim Harbaugh. He went to Stanford, dominated. Went to the 49ers, dominated. Went to Michigan, dominated. Coming to the Chargers now, giving the Chiefs everything they have, walking into the playoffs. This is a team that we just beat 63-20 or whatever it was. The GM that we now have got fired because we destroyed them. I'm reading now on Bleacher Report, the Patriots are all in on T. Higgins. Okay. They're going to offer the moon for him. Well, I don't foresee Tom Telesco doing that, so maybe get T. Higgins out of your brain. Yeah, Vikings too, with O'Connell and Flores. Yes, coaching matters. Now, I just want to say this. As Busy says, AP is getting another chance. He got dealt a bad hand when he took over. No doubt about it. I don't know how you could watch the game yesterday and say it's Antonio Pierce's fault, the reason we lost that game. There's a lot that he wanted to do that we couldn't do, and I agree. It's not Antonio Pierce's fault. However, again, multiple things can be true. This is a theme of this podcast right now. Just because this is not wholly Antonio Pierce's fault does not mean that there are better coaching candidates that we can get. And I said it before. When we had Derek Carr, there were chances for us to upgrade a quarterback, but we didn't because we had Derek Carr, and we could win with Derek Carr. So just because this season is not entirely on Antonio Pierce and he was dealt a bad hand, doesn't mean that Mike Vrabel wouldn't be better. Is there anyone in the comments that really thinks Mike Vrabel isn't as good of a head coach as Antonio Pierce? Please tell me. And I'm just using Mike Vrabel as Exhibit A. But as I put this poll here, and again, no shade to AP. He's been dealt a bad hand, whatever. Do you really think Mike Vrabel, is that spelled right? Vrabel. Looks weird. Do you really think Antonio Pierce is a better coach than Mike Vrabel? And if the answer is no, then how are we not hiring him? That's it. It's over. Until you find the head coach that you would never ever think about giving up, you got to find him. And I agree, dead pitch. Mark may not want to pay 3 fired coaches. But now there's somebody next to him that has 6 Super Bowls or 7 Super Bowls, Tom Brady. That's like, guess what? I know you don't want to pay for this. I want to win football games. I'm a winner. I'm getting better in the broadcast booth every single week. And if we think this guy's better than this guy, then what are we doing? If everyone has the same salary cap and AP really only has a 2-year contract and it's probably in the bottom 5% of the league in terms of money we would owe him, goodbye, AP. No hard feelings. You did all you could. I'll never forget that 2023 season you took over. Same as Rich Bisaccia. But Mike Vrabel is a better coach right now. He's a culture changer, coach of the year, winner. Took Tannehill and Derrick Henry into Arrowhead and was up multiple scores in an AFC championship game. If he has any interest in you, you gotta try to get him. And if you don't think you want to go defensive-minded, then Ben Johnson is the move. Because there might not be any evidence to suggest that Ben Johnson could be better than Antonio Pierce. But I think at the very least, he would be the same. Because as good as I've seen Antonio Pierce get these guys in position to play, and he's a motivator, no doubt about it. Antonio Pierce, time and time again, has shown that he has no idea what to do with these timeouts. And I saw someone say it, and I was holding my tongue until this moment. Where was it? Something with the timeouts, dead pitch. Because his timeout usage is awful. It's terrible. He's called timeouts in multiple situations to get the defense ready, and then the next play, they're like walk-in touchdowns. So it's just you're just wasting timeouts, and then you're just taking knees and then walking into the locker room. Antonio Pierce is a master motivator. I've got no issue saying that, and if you disagree with me, I don't believe you're correct. And this is not all on him. But if there are better options out there, what are we talking about? If you can do better, and if this guy isn't Andy Reid, hello, Herman Edwards. I don't understand it. The conversation is over with this. If none of these guys are interested in your job, then okay, whatever. Then you run it back with AP. You let Scott Turner call the offense because he's been doing okay. Or you try to get a new offensive coordinator, Wes Welker or Josh McCown. Josh McCown, I think, is my number one option. He's the quarterback's coach for the Minnesota Vikings right now. They've got Sam Darnold playing out of his gourd. Josh McCown feels like the guy. Take a little bit of the Kevin O'Connell. Sprinkle onto whoever we draft. And let's rock and roll with Josh McCown. He's my number one option. Herman Edwards washed. No, I'm not saying anything about like hiring Herman Edwards. I'm just quoting him. CyberOp says Ben comes with too many demands. Not a proven head coach to just stay where he is. Yeah, I don't love all the demands he has, but his demands are not like out of this world. He's like, I want a stable organization. I want people to believe in what I'm saying. Like, that's not the craziest demands. It has kind of turned me off. That's like, dude, who are you? Like, you've never coached before. But his demands are not insane. All I would say is this. Keep our options open. That was the point of this whole thing, of this whole podcast, of this whole kit and caboodle. Keep your options open. I know everyone wants to, or not everyone, but a lot of people are like, run it back with AP, draft Shador. If they do that, I'm on board. I believe in Tom Telesco. I believe in Tom Brady. But there are options out there that we need to consider. We cannot get complacent and we cannot get stubborn with the future of this franchise because it's very pivotal. We have not been in position to draft a quarterback in a long time. And if you think Mike Vrabel or Ben Johnson can usher this next franchise quarterback into the future better than Antonio Pierce, then the conversation's over. That's what you got to do. You got to fire him and you got to get somebody else in there. All that to say, it's not completely Antonio Pierce's fault. So I think that's been me for today. A crisp half hour for the boys and girls watching on Bleacher Report. Thank you so much. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you don't know I have a YouTube channel, go over and check it out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will be back on Tuesday, I believe. Tuesday, same time, because we play on Monday night. Do we get flexed out of that game? I'll keep you posted on when I'm actually going to be going live. But until then, thank you so much for watching. I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.